Continuing our reading in Yellow Eyes by Rutherford Montgomery, Chapter 11, Out of the Air. By the middle of August, the kittens were roaming through the cave and out on the ledge. The golden one kept a watchful eye on them when they played out in the open. The danger to them came from the air. On a pinnacle above the rim, a bald eagle had built her nest, and she was ever watchful for prey with which to feed her hungry brood. Circling high in the blue above them, the bald eagle sighted the kittens the first morning they ventured upon the ledge. Yellow Eyes and the golden one were lying at the entrance, watching the wobbly rushes of the little cats. The spotted fellows bumped into rocks and tumbled over bones and sticks as if they lacked a sense of balance and judgment of distance. This worried the parents, though it is a natural thing in young cougars. The unwinking round eyes of the mother eagle bent upon the moving specks at the mouth of the cave. She wheeled and circled lower. When she was a few hundred feet above the ledge, she folded her pinions and dropped like a plummet. The scream of her tightly drawn wings through the thin air warned the golden one. She leaped to the ledge just as the hurling queen of the air spread her wings to check her bullet-like drop. With clutching talons, she descended upon one of the kittens. Yellow Eyes leaped over his mate and landed with crashing force against the beating wings of the eagle. The eagle was hurled from the ledge, her yellow claws clutching the squalling kitten. She beat the air furiously as she dropped and finally caught herself. With a defiant scream, she flew upward toward the pinnacle. The golden one sent a cry of fury ringing down the rocky slope. Like a yellow shadow, she shot off the ledge, her paws lashing out in a vain attempt to strike down the great eagle. Her leap carried her far out and down into a thicket, where she landed with a dull thump. The blow knocked the breath out of her, and she writhed on the ground, spitting and coughing. Yellow Eyes had shoved the remaining kittens into the cave. He bounded down and stood beside the golden one. She struggled to her feet and shook her sleek back free of the grass and needles which clung to it. A low cry rose in her throat, and she leaped up the rocky trail to the cave. Rounding inside, she crowded her babies into a corner and began licking them. Yellow Eyes sprang away up the ridge in the direction of the pinnacles. The faint cries of the stolen kitten had faded. The great eagle was circling down to her nest. Her gripping talons had crushed the little cougar, and he hung limp and lifeless below her beating wings. Yellow Eyes circled the base of the pinnacle, but could find no trail leading upward. His defiant snarls rose to the ears of the eagle, and she answered with a piercing scream, but she did not offer to descend to an attack. She was sore and battered from the blow the cougar had dealt her. Returning to the cave, the king cat attempted to console the golden one. His efforts were not successful. She whined and snarled, licking the kittens and nosing them anxiously. After that, the little fellows did not play upon the ledge again, but stayed close under the overhanging rim, and the golden one seldom left them alone. Yellow Eyes usually stayed with them when she went out hunting. The little fellows began to take notice of their meat their parents brought to them. The golden one began teaching them about meat by licking it, then licking the faces of the kittens. Soon they were suckling at the fresh venison and worrying it. They began to be more active and to guide their leaps, accurately gauging objects they wished to jump over. From then on, they demanded to be taken into the deep woods. Yellow Eyes and the golden one were nervous and anxious as they led the youngsters out for the first time. They kept close to them, and every break of a spotted baby for an open meadow or a sun-drenched space between thickets was headed off. The baby was caught by the scruff of his furry neck and returned to the company of his mother. Yellow Eyes acted as guardian and guide. The first expedition did not take them far from the safety of the cave. Under a giant spruce they romped and played. The kittens rolled over Yellow Eyes, who had stretched himself on the ground. They bit at his ears and spat with great shows of anger. Their little spiked tails fluffed up as they leaped and struck. Yellow Eyes rolled them off his great head, and each time they returned to the attack, like little furies. The Golden One lay and watched the play with a serious interest that was tempered by her nervous alertness to sound and smell. She still remembered the tragic raid of the bald eagle and meant to make sure no enemy attacked them again. Early September marked the first long trip for the family. Yellow Eyes and the Golden One led the romping kittens out on the ledge as sunset was painting the sky back of the ragged peaks with bloody fire. The peaks themselves were shrouded in a smoky veil that bespoke the coming of fall. A full moon, golden in the smoky light, shone down upon the slopes. A great restlessness filled the two big cats. The smell of the purple haze, the savor of grass browned by the first light frosts, and everywhere the hint of flaming colors to come, foretold the death of summer. The kittens had come late and would miss much of the training they should have had before winter set in, and hunting became a desperate problem. Down across the slope the Golden One led the kittens. Yellow Eyes wandered, first above them and then below them, always keeping a watchful guard for danger and for food. The little cougars gave their mother plenty of trouble, and she was forced to snarl at them regularly to make them obey her. They would have roamed away in 3 directions, intent upon poking their little noses into every mouse nest and every crevice under the rock. One of them captured a mole and ran growling and spitting, spiked tail fluffed and held straight upward, to a log where she seated herself and glared at her 2 brothers, who had followed her. When the Golden One approached the log, the little she-cat gulped down the tender morsel and jumped from her perch. The kill that night was a choice find, one which a cougar loves. Yellow Eyes had wandered far below the family. He answered the low cries of the Golden One and kept in touch with the family in that manner. In a little meadow close to the foot of a cliff, the king cat scented his prey. He flattened himself in the tall grass and edged forward. Lifting his head, he looked out into the meadow and saw a half-grown burro feeding peacefully in the moonlight. Horse or burro meat is a choice delicacy to a mountain lion. The black tip of the killer's tail snapped and jerked eagerly. He lowered his head and slipped forward. When 30 feet from the feeding burro, he flattened his belly against the ground and drew his great muscles taut under him. For a second he held himself, still and tensed. Suddenly, his yellow length shot high over the grass like a tawny flame. He landed for a brief, muscle-gathering second on a bare patch of black earth. Leaping again, he landed upon his prey. The burro went down without a sound, his neck broken with the first blow from the big cat's paw. Yellow Eyes eagerly tore at the throat of the animal. For perhaps 5 minutes he contented himself with gulping and lapping. Then he leaped upon the carcass and sent a long, eager cry ringing into the night. From the ridge above, the Golden One answered. She snarled softly to the kittens and headed down the mountain. Yellow Eyes proudly greeted the family as they bounded in to the meadow. He purred loudly and walked around the carcass slowly. The Golden One set about tearing open the fleshy shoulder of the kill to allow the kittens to eat. The feast lasted a long time. The family ate and played and then ate more of the tender meat. Dawn was streaking the eastern sky with a pale glow when the Golden One set about kicking sticks over the kill to mark it as a cougar's cupboard. Yellow Eyes would have forced the family to travel back over the 10 miles of canyon and ridge to the cave, but the Golden One and the babies were groggy and sleepy. They refused to travel so far. Finally, the king cat selected a thicket in the deep shade of a spruce grove and let his family into its shelter. They all lay down and were soon sleeping. That's the end of chapter 11.